Hey y'all, welcome to Restless Chipotle Kitchen. Today, since we're in March and it's close to St. Patrick's Day, we're gonna make a special version of Irish soda bread. It's one of my favorites, and it's delicious. I know you're gonna love it. Okay, we have 2 cups of whole wheat flour and 2 cups of all-purpose flour, melted butter, buttermilk, Guinness, the stout, kosher salt, baking soda, baking powder, brown sugar, the oatmeal, but the old-fashioned oats, not the quick oats, and definitely not instant oats. A little bit of water and some eggs, and I said melted butter. And you also want to have, if you don't use an instant read thermometer, I highly encourage you to get one. You can tell if something is done so quickly and so easily. Pies, cakes, breads, meat, chicken, everything. And I guarantee I use this numerous times a day. And so if you've got one, you're going to want to have one of these on hand too. If you don't have one, you're going to want to buy one. My oven is preheating to 375, and one thing I want to remind y'all is this. I use kosher salt. The recipe uses kosher salt. Kosher salt has a bigger crystal than table salt. So if you use table salt, instead of using 1 teaspoon that's called for in the recipe, you'll use 3/4 of a teaspoon or half a teaspoon, depending on how salty you like things, of table salt, okay? So you have to cut back on the salt if you're using table salt and not kosher salt. Also, butter. This is that great Irish butter. I love this stuff. If you use salted butter, you're going to want to cut back on the salt in the recipe. If you use unsalted butter, then you want to make the recipe as is, okay? That's a lot of times when somebody leaves a comment and they say, this was so salty, and I ask them what kind of salt they used, they'll invariably come back and say table salt, or they use salted butter or whatever. You want to make sure that you're not adding salt to the recipe in other places, like in the butter or in the using table salt instead of kosher salt, okay? First thing you want to do is you want to mix up your all-purpose flour and your whole wheat flour, because you want it to be completely blended. Go ahead and add your baking powder, baking soda, salt, oats, and brown sugar. Oh, good, I made a mess. Yay me! And mix that up really well. Make sure that the brown sugar gets mixed up really well too, because sometimes you'll have like little lumps or clumps of brown sugar in there that don't get broken up, and you want those to be completely broken up. All right, so we're going to set our dry ingredients aside. This is the buttermilk, and I've had it in the freezer. I don't want it to be frozen, but I do want it to be very cold. So I'm going to put my buttermilk in this measuring cup, and I'm going to carefully add in my melted butter. What should happen, I hope happens, is that the melted butter should glob up a little bit, because it's going to cool down, and there should be pieces of melted butter in. Can you see those lumps? Let me get that closer. See those lumps of melted butter? It looks kind of gross, but the melted butter hit the cold buttermilk, and it clumped up. This technique works with biscuits and with scones and with lots of things. You remember how in so many of my recipes I go ahead and grate the butter in, because I just don't like cutting butter in. So grating it in works really well. You can do that. You can cut the butter in if you want to, but a quick and easy way to do it is to have ice cold milk or buttermilk, whatever you're using in your recipe, and melt the butter and add it. And that will give you little clumps of butter to go in your recipe. So we're going to set that aside. We're going to add the eggs to another bowl, because if we can't dirty at least 1,500 dishes, what's the point, right? And then I'm going to whisk these until their yolk is completely mixed with the white. And I'm going to add the butter and buttermilk mixture to the egg yolk, or the mixed up eggs. And as long as they're cold, the butter will still stay in the clumps, and that's what we want. Make sure that you get all of those clumps off the spoon too. Okay. Mix that up a little bit. And now we've got the Guinness, and it's cold. Okay, we've got 2/3 of a cup of Guinness, and that's going to go right in there too. And again, make sure that it's cold. Should be icy cold. Now we're going to make a well in the center of the dry ingredients and pour this in. Make sure we get all of those little lumps of butter out of there, because we want them all in our bread. And now you're just going to stir gently. That you don't want to beat this, because it will develop the gluten too much, and that will make this tough. You don't want that. I know somebody's going to ask me if you can make this with gluten-free flour. I don't really work with gluten-free flour that much. My soon-to-be daughter-in-law is gluten-free, and I'm learning, but I just don't know. So I'm sorry about that. I wish I did. I wish I could answer that. All I can say is try it out. See if it works. I mean, maybe it will, and you can come back and let me know. I appreciate that. All right, and we're just going to make sure that all of the flour gets incorporated. You don't want any left on the bottom like that. And I know this is messy, but we're going to do it this way, because to me it's just easier when you've got a thick dough like this. I'm going to give it a quick little knead in the bowl to get all of that flour up. Now, as you can see, yeah, this is so messy. If you don't like messy fingers, you're in trouble. As you can see, this is a very soft, sticky dough. And that's how we want it. All right, I am going to bake this in my cast iron pan. And so I'm going to stop right now, and I'm going to spray it with a nonstick spray. And I'm going to put it in the oven to heat up while I'm shaping the bread. You don't have to do this. You don't have to heat the pan up in the oven. But what I've found is when you do, the bottom of the bread gets a really nice crust on it, and it's just so delicious. So heat it up if you want to. If you don't want to heat it up, that's no problem. But that's what I'm going to do this time. Okay, I've dusted the counter with a little bit of flour, and I'm going to turn this out onto that. And then I'm just going to give it a little light knead. And dust it with flour as I need to keep it from sticking too badly to my hands or the counter. And I want a nice round loaf. And let me tell you, there may be hundreds of ways to shape this loaf, or to make it the shape that you want. And I'm sure that different people have different ways, but if you can just make it into a round loaf, that's what you want. Doesn't matter how you get there, okay? I'm going to slash across in this. And I like to put a little more flour on the top and rub it in. I think it helps it show up better. And then the extra you can just kind of brush off. And then get a really good slash in there. Round it up a little bit. And then there is a tradition in some parts of Ireland, maybe every part of Ireland, I don't know, but you poke it in each quarter to let the fairies out. Don't ask me, but I don't want any fairies stuck in the bread, so I'm for sure going to do it. Always have, always will. Now we're going to take our egg yolk. Well, we're going to take the egg and separate the white out. And then take the egg yolk and add the water, a tablespoon of water. I'm going to grab a fork and just mix that up really well. You can do whatever you want with the egg white. You can use it in an egg white omelet. You can give it to the dog. You can throw it away. You're not going to need that. And then I'm just going to very lightly brush the top of the loaf with the egg yolk and water. This will help it have a nice crust, and it'll be pretty and glossy, one hopes, and an absolute work of art. Okay? Promise. And now I'm going to just garnish the top with a few more oats. Give it a nice rustic look there. My oven's set for 375, and I'm taking the hot pan out. And this is where a bread paddle would come in really nice and handy, because this is honestly a sticky loaf when it's, unbaked. But the best way you want to get that in the pan, and you're going to have to probably reshape it a little bit. But at least you won't have to feel bad about your loaf looking weird, because look, mine does too. All right, so I'm going to take this, just shape it back up in the round, no big deal. Go through here, go through here. I don't think there's any fairies still stuck in there, so we should be good. And then we're just going to take this and we're going to put it in the oven for about 40 minutes. I'll check it after 40 minutes, and I will use InstaRead thermometer right in the center, and when it reads 200 degrees Fahrenheit, it will be done, okay? So I will see you, let me get all of my things on that keep me from burning my hands, which I'm terrible at. I will see y'all in about 40 minutes. Okay, y'all. It's done. It was in there exactly 40 minutes. And when I checked the temperature, it was a little over 200 degrees. So I went a little bit over. Let's check again. Yeah, it's about 203 degrees. So not too far over. You want to keep it as close to 200 degrees as possible, because that's going to ensure a nice crisp crust on the outside and a tender crumb on the inside. So the hard part now, because the kitchen smells amazing, is to let this cool down a little bit before we cut into it. If you cut into this bread too hot, it is going to crumble. There is no way around it. So be patient, let it cool down a little bit, and I'll be back. Okay, y'all, this has cooled down a lot, and it should be ready to go. I'm going to move this over to a cutting, well, it's actually not a cutting board, it's a charcuterie board, but it's a cutting board today. This is so good. I wish you could smell it. But remember, we put the dough in the pan while it was hot, and it gave it this really nice crispy bottom, and the top is bumpy and rough and just yum. I always like to cut with a bread knife. Might still be a little warm. Now, there's a couple of ways to cut this bread. Some people like to cut it in wedges, and some people like to cut it in slices. There is no right or wrong way. So however you want to cut it, cut it. I'd suggest that you try to cut it kind of thick, because this isn't a yeast bread, this is a quick bread, and it's going to be a different texture than a yeast bread, right? But look how beautiful that is. It's got the flecks of the oats in there. It's got oats on the top, a crispy crust all the way around, and just so good. It's perfect with soup, with stews, with just about anything. Of course, then what you want to do is to take some of this good Irish butter and just spread it on this good Irish bread, and it just doesn't get much better than this. Well, y'all, this is so delicious. The house smells so good, and it is crusty and soft, tender crumb. The butter's on there. It's slightly sweet from the whole wheat flour and the brown sugar. It is just delicious. Perfect for soup, stews, just plain with butter. I love it. It's great for toast too. So I hope you guys will try it. I hope you're gonna love it. Don't forget to subscribe. Please come back next week and see what we're making. And yeah, love y'all, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.